Welcome back, everyone. It's great to be back with you as we jump right back into this deep dive on sleep.
Glad to be here.
This is actually our 14th installment. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
14 deep dives on sleep. And honestly, the older I get, I feel like that good night's rest is just getting further and further away.
I hear you.
We've covered a lot of ground in this series, really trying to get to the bottom of the science behind sleep and how it affects us, particularly as we get a little older.
Yeah.
But today, we're diving into some stuff that, well, honestly, it really surprised me. We're going to be talking about sleeping pills.
Ah, yes.
I think it's a topic that, well, I think it's a topic a lot of people have some strong opinions on.
For sure.
And the facts, I think, they might just surprise you.
Yeah, I think so.
What we're about to discuss today, well, it might just make you think twice before you reach for that bottle on your nightstand.
Yeah, there are definitely some things to consider.
So, it seems like a pretty simple solution, right? Tossing and turning, can't sleep, so you take a pill and you drift right off. Boom.
Problem solved.
Exactly.
Or so we think.
And millions of people do just that every night, don't they? Millions of people are popping sleeping pills every single month just to get a little bit of shut-eye.
That's right. Millions.
I mean, clearly this is a huge problem.
It is. It really is.
But that's where things start to get interesting because, you see, sleeping pills, they don't actually give you natural sleep.
You're absolutely right. And that's a really critical distinction that I think a lot of people aren't aware of. When we're talking about natural sleep, we're talking about how our brains and bodies are designed to go through these different stages of sleep, each of them serving a different function. They're all restorative in their own ways. But sleeping pills, they don't work that way. They're essentially sedatives. They actually act on those same brain receptors as alcohol. So instead of gently easing you into that natural sleep cycle, it's more like hitting the off switch, just shutting down your brain.
So it's not really sleep then, is it?
Not in the true sense of the word, no.
I mean, it's more like, well, being knocked unconscious, isn't it?
I guess you could say that, yeah.
Which would explain why I think, sometimes you wake up and you feel so groggy and disoriented.
Yeah.
Even after a full night of, quote unquote sleep.
Exactly. You're not getting those restorative benefits of the deep sleep cycles. And those are absolutely critical for our physical and mental health. And that's really where it starts to get concerning, because not only are you missing out on those benefits, but you're potentially opening yourself up to, well, a whole host of unpleasant side effects.
And that's where things get really, really interesting, because the book dives right into the nitty-gritty of these side effects.
Oh, yeah.
It talks about next day grogginess, of course, memory problems, and even, get this, doing things at night and not even remembering them.
Oh, wow. Like what?
Like sleepwalking, sleep eating,
Oh, wow.
even sleep driving.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, scary stuff.
That is concerning, especially as we get older. I mean, imagine being groggy, having those slowed reaction times when you're out there on the road, or operating machinery.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a recipe for disaster, isn't it? And it's not just those immediate side effects either. It gets worse. There's something called rebound insomnia.
Rebound.
It's this cruel twist where stopping the pills can actually make your insomnia worse than it was before you even started taking them.
So wait, let me get this straight.
Yeah.
You're taking the pills to try to sleep better, but then when you try to stop, you end up in a worse position than when you started.
It sounds crazy, but that's exactly what can happen. Our brains are incredibly adaptable, you see. When we introduce a substance like a sleeping pill, and we do it regularly, our brains start to change their chemistry to compensate. Almost like they become reliant on the drug to function. And then when we stop taking those pills abruptly, like a lot of people do, our brains, well, they're left in a sort of withdrawal state. They haven't had the chance to adjust, so the insomnia comes roaring back, often even stronger than it was before.
It's almost like setting yourself up for failure, isn't it?
You could say that, yes.
You're taking this pill to sleep, but then you end up needing the pill, depending on the pill, just to function.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope.
And the irony is, according to this book, the pills might not even be that effective in the first place.
Right. I mean, there's a growing body of research that's really starting to question just how well these sleeping pills actually work.
Oh, really?
There was one large study that found that sleeping pills only help people fall asleep a tiny bit faster. And here's the kicker. It was no better than a placebo.
Wait a minute. So people taking sleeping pills are basically experiencing a placebo effect.
In many cases, it seems that way, yes.
So they think they're sleeping better, but in reality, It's all in their head.
It's amazing how powerful our minds can be, isn't it?
That's incredible. So we're potentially talking about a situation where people are taking this drug that, well, the effectiveness is questionable at best, and it comes with this whole laundry list of side effects. And to top it off, it might actually be making their insomnia worse over time.
It's definitely a complex issue with a lot of layers.
And it gets even more unsettling when you start to look at the research of a Dr. Daniel Kripke.
Oh, yes, Dr. Kripke. His work is fascinating.
So he conducted this study.
Right, he did.
And it followed a large group of people over 2.5 years.
Uh-huh.
And his findings, well, they were alarming.
They were quite surprising, to say the least.
He found that people who were taking sleeping pills were significantly more likely to die during that time period.
Or much more likely, yes.
Did you say more likely to die?
I did, yes. The study found that people taking sleeping pills were several times more likely to die during the study period compared to those who weren't using sleeping pills.
That's serious. What's the connection there?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Researchers are still trying to fully understand the complex interplay of factors. But there are a few theories. One theory is that sleeping pills suppress the immune system.
Yeah.
And we know that as we age, a strong immune system is absolutely critical for fighting off illness and staying healthy.
Makes sense.
So that's a big concern right there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we already know that sleep, good sleep, plays such a vital role in our immune function. So if these pills are messing with our natural sleep patterns, it stands to reason that, well, our immune system's going to take a hit.
It's a logical connection, isn't it? And then there's the issue of drowsiness and impaired coordination. Remember we talked about those side effects earlier?
No.
Well, those increase the risk of accidents, and especially fatal car accidents. And for older adults, who might already be dealing with some age-related declines in reaction time and balance, that increased risk is even more significant, wouldn't you say?
Definitely.
Yeah.
We're painting kind of a bleak picture here, aren't we?
It's not all doom and gloom, I promise. We'll get to the more hopeful stuff soon.
Okay, good. So we've got this immune system suppression and the increased risk of accidents. But the book doesn't stop there. It also brings up a connection between sleeping pill use and some other serious health problems like heart disease, stroke, and even cancer.
Dr. Kripke's study did find a correlation there, yes. It's important to remember, though, that correlation doesn't equal causation, right?
Right.
We can't say definitively that sleeping pills directly cause these diseases.
Right.
But the association, well, it's strong enough to warrant further investigation, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I mean, it makes you think, if sleeping pills are associated with all of these potential risks, and if their effectiveness is, well, questionable at best, why are they so widely prescribed?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's something I've often wondered myself.
And why aren't we talking about these potential downsides more?
Right. Why isn't there more awareness about this? Well, there are a few factors at play here, I think. One, I think, has to be the power of the pharmaceutical industry. These companies are spending billions with a B, every year marketing their products. And sleeping pills are a huge market.
Oh, I bet.
They've done a very, very good job of convincing doctors and patients that these pills are a safe and effective solution to sleep problems.
So it's a matter of marketing and messaging, highlighting those potential benefits and kind of sweeping the risks under the rug.
Pretty much. And when you consider how many people are out there struggling with sleep problems, it creates a perfect storm for products like these to really take off.
I see what you mean. I mean, we live in a culture that really values those quick fixes, instant gratification.
We want results, and we want them now.
And sleeping pills, well, they seem to fit that bill perfectly.
They do, don't they? They offer that seemingly easy solution to a complex problem.
But as we've seen, that solution, well, it may be a lot more complicated and a lot more harmful than we've been led to believe.
It's definitely something to think about.
This has been incredibly enlightening so far, I have to say.
I agree.
We've really dug in to the science behind sleeping pills and explored the potential side effects, and we've started to kind of unpack some of these systemic factors that are contributing to their widespread use.
Yeah.
But there's hope, right?
Oh, absolutely. There are many effective non-drug solutions out there.
That's what I like to hear.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about all the things to be cautious of.
Right.
But let's explore those alternative approaches to getting better sleep. Solutions that don't involve, well, medication. And we'll do that right after this.
We were talking about those quick fixes, weren't we? And those sleeping pills and all. But, there's so many other ways to try to get some good sleep.
And those are the paths we want to explore now. I mean, it's important to be aware of those potential risks of sleeping pills, for sure. But I think it's equally important to note that there are other options out there, options that are effective, but also, they can help in the long run.
That's right. And one of the most promising approaches, I think, is cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia.
CBT-I.
Exactly, CBT-I. And I know therapy might not be the first thing that pops into your head when you think about sleep problems,
Right.
but CBT-I is designed to address those underlying, thoughts and behaviors, even habits that can make insomnia worse.
For our listeners who haven't heard of CBT-I, can you give us a little rundown? What is that?
Sure. It's a structured program, usually several sessions, and it uses a few different techniques. One important one is sleep restriction.
Sleep restriction.
Yeah, it might sound a little counterintuitive, but it means you actually limit the time you spend in bed. At first, it might even mean you're awake for some of that time. The goal is to make your sleep more efficient, get rid of those long stretches of just lying there awake.
So it's like you're retraining your brain to connect being in bed with sleeping, not with, well, tossing and turning and worrying about not being able to sleep.
Exactly. But CBTI isn't just about sleep restriction. It also involves things like what we call stimulus control, basically creating a good sleep-wake routine and setting up healthy habits around sleep.
Makes sense.
And there's also cognitive restructuring, where you learn how to challenge and reframe those thoughts that can keep you up at night. Like if you're lying there worrying about everything you have to do the next day, you can learn ways to manage that worry, quiet your mind a bit.
This sounds like a pretty complete approach dealing with both, the behavioral and the mental sides of insomnia.
That's the idea. And the great thing about CBTI is it's really effective.
Oh, well, that's good to know.
Lots of studies have shown that CBTI is just as good as sleeping pills in the short term, and it has longer lasting effects.
So even after those therapy sessions are over, you still benefit.
That's right. Those skills you learn, they stick with you. Unlike sleeping pills, which, we've talked about how they can lead to dependence and that rebound insomnia, CBTI actually gives you the tools to control your sleep without needing those medications. It's getting to the root of the problem, not just covering it up.
That's important, I think, especially as we get older. We want to find solutions that actually improve our health, not create new problems.
I agree. And while CBTI is really great for chronic insomnia, there are also lots of simple things we can all do to improve our sleep hygiene, even if we don't have a sleep disorder.
That's where the classic sleep hygiene tips come in, right? Like having a consistent sleep schedule, even on the weekends.
That's one of the big ones. It seems simple, but you'd be surprised how many people don't have a regular sleep-wake cycle. Our bodies need routine, and when we go to bed and wake up around the same time each day, it helps keep our internal clock in sync. Makes it easier to fall asleep and wake up feeling good.
It's like setting our internal alarm clock.
Exactly. And speaking of things that can throw off that clock, what about all that screen time late at night?
Oh, yeah. The blue light, it's everywhere.
It is, isn't it? Phones, tablets, computers, even our TVs, they're all putting out blue light. And our brains, well, they think it's daylight. That messes with our melatonin production.
So even when we're tired, looking at our phone or watching TV late at night, we're telling our brains to stay awake.
Pretty much. And it's not just the melatonin. Those screens keep our minds going, engaged and alert when we should be winding down. So really try to cut back on screen time in the hours before bed.
I'm definitely guilty of that myself.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up scrolling through social media, and the next thing you know, an hour's gone by, and I'm wondering why I can't sleep.
We've all been there. It's become such a common habit, but breaking it can really make a difference. Even just dimming the lights in the evening can help your body get ready for sleep.
And what about the bedroom itself? Does that matter for how well we sleep?
It does, actually. Making your bedroom a comfortable sleep haven can make a world of difference. Think cool, dark, and quiet. Keeping it cool helps because our body temperature naturally drops as we fall asleep. Darkness helps with melatonin production, and quiet, well, that minimizes distractions.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It's about having a space where your body feels safe and relaxed enough to drift off.
You got it. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Sometimes simple things like blackout curtains, a white noise machine, even earplugs can really help.
What about exercise? We know staying active is good for us, but does it affect sleep?
There's a definite link between exercise and sleep. Regular physical activity has been shown to improve sleep quality, especially over time. But it's not about doing a big workout right before bed. That can actually make it harder to fall asleep because it raises your body temperature and gives you energy.
So finding the right balance is key. Get that exercise in, but give your body time to cool down and relax before you hit the hay.
Exactly. And the best part is it works both ways. Good sleep can actually boost your workout performance, so it's a win-win situation.
So we're back to that holistic approach again. Everything's connected. Sleep, exercise, diet, even our mental health. It all plays a part.
It really does. And since we're talking about diet, that plays a role in sleep too. Eating big meals right before bed can make it harder to fall asleep because your body's working hard to digest. And, things like caffeine and alcohol, they might make you drowsy at first, but they can mess with your sleep later on.
Finding that balance again, right? Paying attention to our bodies and what works best for us.
That's what it's all about. There's no magic formula for good sleep. What works for one person might not work for another. It's about experimenting a little, finding what helps you feel your best, and making a sleep routine that supports your overall well-being.
That's a great point. It's not about feeling like we're at the mercy of insomnia or sleep medications. It's about taking charge of our own sleep. We've covered so much today, from those potential risks of sleeping pills to the benefits of CBT-I and those good sleep hygiene habits. But there's one thing I want to go back to before we finish up.
What's that?
We talked earlier about how common sleeping pills are and about all those possible problems they can cause. And it made me think, if they can be that risky, why don't we hear more about it? Why aren't people more aware of the dangers?
It's a good question. I think a few things contribute to that. One, as we said before, is marketing. Drug companies put a lot of money into making their products look good, highlighting the good and downplaying the bad. And they're really good at it.
It's true. You see all these ads for sleeping pills promising perfect sleep and wonderful mornings. It's a powerful message.
It is. And sometimes I think there's a stigma around sleep problems.
What stigma?
People feel embarrassed to admit they're having trouble sleeping, so they don't talk about it. They don't talk to their doctor. They don't seek help. They just try to deal with it on their own.
It's seen as a weakness, like it's their fault somehow.
Yeah.
But the truth is, sleep problems are really common. They can happen to anyone, no matter your age, how you live your life, or your health. It's something we should be talking about more openly and honestly.
I agree with you there. We need to make it okay to talk about sleep problems, just like we do with other health issues. We need to create a space where people feel comfortable talking about it without feeling judged.
And it's not just about getting rid of the stigma. It's about giving people the right information so they can make good choices about their sleep health.
Absolutely. People need to know the risks and benefits of all their options, both medications and those non-drug approaches. They need to know that there are alternatives to sleeping pills, alternatives that might actually be better in the long run.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation, I have to say. I think we've busted some myths about sleeping pills, and we've looked at some really promising alternative ways to improve our sleep. Before we go, do you have any final thoughts for our listeners?
I think the most important thing to remember is this. Sleep is a basic human need, just like breathing, eating, and drinking. It's essential for our physical and mental health, and we need to take care of it. If you're having trouble sleeping, don't ignore it. Don't suffer in silence. Talk to your doctor. Try some of those non-drug options. Prioritize good sleep habits. There are solutions out there, and you deserve to experience the power of a good night's sleep.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And with that, we'll be wrapping up this deep dive on sleep. Thanks for joining us. Sweet dreams, everyone. As we wrap up this deep dive on sleeping pills, there's one thing that keeps coming back to me, something we haven't really talked about.
Oh, what's that?
Well, we've talked about, individual choices, like whether or not to take a sleeping pill and those bigger issues like the drug companies and their marketing. But there's this whole other layer I think we need to consider.
I'm listening.
I'm thinking about the healthcare system itself, the whole system. We've seen that sleeping pills can have some pretty serious risks. But they're still so easy to get. Go to the doctor, get a prescription, done. It doesn't seem quite right, does it?
I see what you mean. There's definitely a tendency in healthcare to focus on treating the symptoms rather than, well, the root of the problem.
Right. It's quicker, it's easier, and let's be honest, probably more profitable.
You're not wrong.
And when it comes to sleep, I think that approach just doesn't work. Instead of taking the time to figure out what's really going on, like stress, anxiety, bad sleep habits, maybe even a medical condition, we just throw a pill at it and hope for the best.
It's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg, isn't it? Might make you feel better for a minute, but it's not going to fix the problem.
Exactly. And with sleeping pills, as we've learned, that Band-Aid might be doing more harm than good in the long run.
Definitely something to think about.
It makes you wonder, what would a better way to handle sleep problems look like? If we really focus on understanding those root causes, what kind of impact could that have?
That's a great question. I think it could be huge, not just for people who are struggling to sleep, but for everyone. Imagine if doctors always asked about sleep habits, if they talked to patients about good sleep hygiene, and explored those non-drug options before even thinking about medication.
It would be a big shift in how we think about sleep, wouldn't it? Both for doctors and for patients.
It would. We'd have to let go of that quick fix mentality and really focus on what each individual needs.
And that takes time and education. It means being willing to change how we do things.
It does, but I think it's possible. We're already seeing a push towards more holistic and integrative approaches to health, and sleep is a big part of that.
That's good to hear, because when you really get down to a good sleep, it's an investment, isn't it? It's an investment in our health, our well-being, how we function, our relationships, everything.
I couldn't agree more. It's not just about feeling rested, it's about living our best lives.
Well said.
Yeah.
This deep dive has really been a journey. We started by asking some questions about sleeping pills, and we ended up talking about some pretty big questions about our healthcare system and how we view sleep as a society. I have to say, I'm walking away feeling more informed, more in control, and honestly a little hopeful.
That's wonderful to hear. And I think that's what it's all about, isn't it? Hope. We need to believe that there's a better way, a healthier way, and we need to fight for that change, for ourselves and for everyone who comes after us.
Well said. Thank you to all of our listeners for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it as insightful as we did. And remember, sweet dreams are within reach for all of us.